we're at this point and keeping it real, we're going to go into a full spoilerish discussion of Ghostbusters. We've both seen it. So, bookmark this, come back, watch it after you've seen it, because we're going to talk about what we thought about the movie. Terri's review of the film is on the site. Ghostbusters opens up this weekend. It's tracking in about the $35 to $50 million range, which isn't great, but Secret Life of Pets is probably going to stay number one with $55 million. That thing made $104 million.
That thing is a beast because it stars a lot of cute beasts.
It opened up bigger than Inside Out, which is Pixar. But yeah, let's talk about Ghostbusters. Since you did the review, why don't you kick off with your kind of thumbnail of what you thought of the film, what worked, what didn't?
My favorite thing about the movie was the Ghostbusters themselves. I thought that Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, Leslie Jones, Kate McKinnon, all were really great. We were more on the side that Kate McKinnon didn't always work for us. Her character Holtzman, who is just like crazy, off the wall, like probably literally insane.
Yeah.
But like she is just in her own movie, doing her own thing, really funny. Some people, it was their favorite part of it.
I think she's the most interesting part, but I wanted to see the movie that she thought she'd seen.
Yeah, but I will say, I think the Ghostbusters themselves work really well. Where the movie comes up lacking, the pacing just felt off.
Yeah.
For us, we both talked about this. It just felt like it needed another pass, another edit. There were big lulls in the movie where there weren't as many laughs. The story was, sped up. Like the first act was really great, and then they got into the second act, and then there was this whole third act, and by then, it's only 2 hours long, but it feels like a long 2 hours.
Yeah, that midsection did get kind of just a little too bogged down and stuff that a sharper kind of edit of the movie, and I think the pacing affects how the jokes land. And I think if the pacing, think about Guardians of the Galaxy, like when when they showed that 10-minute preview of it before it came out, it was an edited sequence of how it actually plays in the final film, and because the pacing was different, the jokes to me didn't land. And so my first taste of Guardians of the Galaxy was, this doesn't look good, like it looks off. And I feel like, but then when you watch it, the sequence as it's meant to be seen, and you see the pacing, all the jokes landed. And I felt like this movie needed that pacing, a sharper pace. And then I think Kate McKinnon's shtick would have worked a little better.
Yeah, I will say, and Jim was sitting next to me so he can vouch for this, I thought for all that, Chris Hemsworth is in the movie, especially in the first half of the movie before they do something a little bit different with him. I guess we're talking spoilers, but until they twist around what they do with him as a character, he was really funny to me. There was like that one second, his just like dumb shtick was so funny to me. I was like snort laughing.
She really was laughing her head off at it. I thought it was funny like the first couple of times, but then I just thought it got a little tired, like it was the same joke over and over.
It kept being funny.
I felt like he was playing the role that they wanted Channing Tatum but couldn't get him.
No. I think I disagree with you. Channing Tatum would be great. I think Chris Hemsworth was great. It wasn't a role that needed a different actor. He did a great job. I do feel like
Clark Kent, as they called him at one point.
Yes, yeah. I do feel like
Or was it Clark Kent Strippergram is what they called it, right?
I don't know. I guess I have to go back and watch him and stare at him. I do think that some of the negativity surrounding the movie did seep into it as they were writing it. Like the main villain is essentially an internet troll in a lot of ways. And not to generalize the people who hated the movie before it was released, but
they've generalized the movie.
But that is sort of like a caricature of what people conceive, those people complaining about the movie and it being female Ghostbusters and all that. And even, you feel that through, it feels like they're pulling actual YouTube comments when the Ghostbusters are looking at YouTube reactions or video reactions to their ghost saves around the city.
I did like that everyone thought everything was fake. because,
Yeah, that was funny. But even like
the city has to like disavow them, even though they're
yeah,
like
it was
kind of like
the line
secretly,
was like no girls can't bust no ghosts or something
Yeah.
like that, which probably was taken off an actual YouTube video, a like trailer for this movie. But even the thing that didn't land for me a little bit at the very end was when the entire city, has like "We Heart Ghostbusters" lights, and that's like a mid-credit scene. But it did feel a little bit like wish fulfillment. Like, please give us a happy ending, like meta after this movie comes out. Everyone, please love us. Like, it's great. I think it isn't a perfect movie. It's a fine movie. It's an okay movie. It's not anything anywhere near worth the hatred leveled at it. And I think it's great that the best part of the movie is the Ghostbusters themselves.
Yeah, I really liked the quartet, and like I said, Kate McKinnon was the character I couldn't wait to see just from the trailers. I think she did. But I do think that people are. I think it's going to take about a year before the people who really loved the movie and really hated the movie let everything die down, go back and just watch it again. Because I do feel like on both sides, and everyone who works online deals with a level of vitriol and wrath that is not acceptable. And this particular movie this movie has sort of become the lightning rod for awful people who are going to be awful regardless, and this movie will never win them over. But I do think let's come back in a year when everything has died down and look at the movie again. I feel like a bit more objectively than my friend Chris Lee Kennedy came up with a really interesting theory. Near the end of the movie, the bad guy Rowan becomes a ghost, and he takes the form of the cute, cuddly Ghostbusters logo. And then he morphs into this monstrous, just awful, vile version of it. And she pointed out how that's like actually a perfect metaphor for kind of like the Ghostbusters hardcore fans, and how this cute, lovely thing became this big, ugly force of destruction. And I thought that was a really interesting kind of
That's
way
an
to look
interesting
at it.
take on it, yeah. But also goes back to that whole like the meta commentary on the commentary about the movie that's like very much ingrained.
Did it feel too meta at times for you?
It a couple times, and it was really at the end when there was that like sparkly happy ending of like everyone loves like Ghostbusters and stuff. It just felt a bit like the wish fulfillment of what they wanted. I did feel like I just kept trying to sit there, and during the movie, it's really hard to remove yourself watching a film like this, not only from the movies that came before the previous two Ghostbusters films, but also like the conversation around it. It's just become the conversation about Ghostbusters, for better or worse. But I was trying to remove both of those things from my viewing experience and sit there and think, if Ghostbusters wasn't Ghostbusters, if that first movie from the 80s wasn't as beloved as it was, and this movie was the first Ghostbusters movie, would it solicit the same sort of fervent, cult favorite response? And I don't think it would.
Nah, it wouldn't.
I think there's another movie there with these actors that they could do, because they are some of the funniest people out there, and that's something a lot of people were like, we didn't hate this movie because it's women, we hated them for X, Y, and Z, and one of them was like, because they aren't funny. And I didn't want to engage, but I also wanted to be like, these people are hilarious, and they've proven again and again they are hilarious. Like, if you're gonna say this person isn't funny, pick a person who's not Kristen Wiig and Kate McKinnon and the rest of these people. They are funny, and that you can't deny that. But I do think a different movie, a new franchise that even more leans into what works about these people, or twists the sort of performances they've given before, might turn into that same sort of beloved comedy status.
And I would say on that note, for people like, well, they should have cast I don't know, what's his face, Chris Pratt or Channing Tatum in there, and done it with that. Yeah, you know what? We've had versions of movies like that. It was called The Watch. And that thing flopped. We've seen variations on this sort of idea of like the comedy guys getting together. I mean, Seth Rogen has kind of done that.
Yeah,
with,
Adam Sandler keeps doing that on Netflix, and they're terrible.
Pixels did that, and that was horrible.
Yeah.
So it's just, and I do want to point out too, about 12 years ago, maybe more, 14 years ago, yeah, 14 years ago, I read a draft of Ghostbusters 3 that Dan Aykroyd wrote. And it was called Ghostbusters 3 Hellbent. And it's all about how Manhattan, basically hell bubbles up to the surface of Manhattan and it becomes Manhattan. And it was not good. It was not a good script. It was kind of lame execution. It did follow a new group of Ghostbusters that had Peter Venkman as a ghost, because already back then Murray didn't want to do it. So, you know, and Ghostbusters 2 didn't work. It's not a beloved sequel. You might be fond of it because you saw it when you were younger, but compared to the first Ghostbusters, there's a Ghostbusters movie that didn't work. And that was the same group of people came back and they couldn't recapture the magic again. And so I feel like the haters out there, you probably wouldn't have liked the Ghostbusters 3 that would have eventually gotten made. You know, we've seen in the last few years a real mixed bag of bringing back the actors who played these characters 20, 30 years ago to mixed results. I mean, for every Sylvester Stallone in Creed or Rocky Balboa, there was Terminator Genesis, where you just can't, even though Arnold is probably the best thing in that movie, it can't recapture what worked before, you know, or even like Wall Street Money Never Sleeps or Tron Legacy, you know, it just didn't quite work. So I just think a reboot with new faces was inevitable.
And I think the smarter choice too. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, this is going to ruin my childhood." As Tom, our man with the plan behind a camera, always likes to tell us, you can't ruin your childhood because you're already out of your childhood.
Yeah.
Your childhood exists in the past. A new movie is not going to ruin that.
You know what ruins your childhood? Death, crime, famine, disease, social issues.
That's true.
I mean,
the things that happened
bullies
during your
at
childhood.
school, a movie reboot. It's Ghostbusters. Let's just say Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters, won't ruin your childhood, and get over that part of it. It's look, if Ghostbusters 2 didn't ruin your childhood, the Ghostbusters reboot won't. But the one thing though that really did pull me out of the movie, and I thought the movie was just aggressively okay. Didn't love the new reboot, but I liked the first act, but the thing that pulled me out of the movie was the fan service. I thought it had some of the worst fan service since Star Trek Into Darkness.
There was one, Ernie Hudson's cameo is the one that worked best for me, because
Me too.
you've been hearing about Leslie Jones' character's uncle the whole movie,
the
and then at the
Undertaker,
end, and then at the end it's Ernie Hudson. You're like, oh, like that's
it
so
paid
funny.
off.
Yeah, it was payoff. I didn't think that Bill Murray, like I thought he sort of phoned it in,
But
and
also, it just pull you out of the movie. It's Bill Murray. Like, it was enough that he was on the TV screen, but then when he actually shows up and they kill him off, you're like,
And I also Dan Aykroyd's didn't really work for me either at the end of the movie. And what I really thought that they were going to do.
Not only did they bring him back, but they have him say one line, I ain't afraid of no ghosts or whatever like that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need it to that level.
What I thought that they were going to do earlier in it, and now I'm blanking on the name, but when they look at the, Melissa McCarthy like looks at the TV, and it's another like ghost hunters type,
it's
like ghost trappers or something.
Yeah.
So, but she looks and she's like, these guys give us a bad name. I thought it was going to be all of them there. Like I thought that would be a really funny, and it could be that small. You don't need to have it hitting you over the head with all this stuff.
And I thought, Sigourney Weaver's cameo was really egregious. I would have rather her play the role that Andy Garcia played. Have her play the mayor of New York. Like, if you're going to have her in the movie, do something with her. But like, just randomly, oh, now my mentor showed up, who's eccentric, and it's like, come on.
And that's another one of those things. Like, if Holtzman had been talking about her mentor all movie, which feels like
they cut it out.
Which feels like it's a part of the movie that was cut. Maybe it would have paid off like the Ernie Hudson cameo, but instead
or have her play the dean at that science school. That something. I don't know. There was just
Let us
something.
write all your celebrity cameos,
I'm just
Hollywood.
saying, like, it really pulled me out of the movie every time they tried to do fan service, and it felt like they were playing scared. And that new version of the Ghostbusters theme song is terrible. Yeah, I think we can all agree on that one.
Definitive.
Well, I feel like we've kind of covered what we thought worked and didn't work on the movie. I did like that opening sequence the best, the one with the museum guy. And all that. I thought the ghosts were legitimately scary. And I will say that Paul Feig, the director, did explain to me the secret origin of the new Slimer. Now, the original Slimer, and a lot of fans got bent out of shape when they watched this video I did with him, but it was a nod to John Belushi, who obviously probably would have been in Ghostbusters had he not passed away. And so, this new Slimer is supposed to be like this fat old gangster back in the 20s who got essentially mowed down in half by machine gun fire. And I asked Paul Feig, I'm like, look, there's actually an interesting philosophical debate or a conversation you could have about the ghosts in this movie, because they're all bad, they're all like evil people. So what does that mean for little Slimer, who was kind of like the cutesy, even on the cartoon they made him, oh, I'm your sidekick, I'm Slimer, and so that's where the secret origin of Slimer came up. But yeah.
Good question. Good digging.
Well, we want to know, what did you think of the Ghostbusters movie? Please be respectful, be kind in the comments. There's a way to disagree without being disagreeable. So thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments. For all things movies, keep it here on IGN, and tune in next week to IGN.com for our live stream from Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, Thursday through Saturday, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time every day on IGN.com. Again, for all things movies, keep it here on IGN.